Waltz, a member of the House Armed Services Committee, National Guard Colonel and former Green Beret commander. Congressman, I'd like you to listen to something that Bret Baier said earlier this morning about the dire situation that's unfolding right now as we speak. Watch this.
This is the darkest hour for Europe since World War II. It is the darkest moment for a dictator trying to take over another country. And what we're witnessing is the beginning of what likely will be significant fighting and significant death. And that's the big picture.
And then we saw that unfolding before our very eyes, Congressman, during Steve Harrigan's report, where live on the air there was a missile strike that hit 2 miles from his position. He says that these strikes appear to be targeted, but stunning and terrifying nonetheless.
Well, that's right. I think, Carly, how you're going to see this unfold are a series of attacks in the east. That's where a majority of Ukraine's army is focused and stationed right now around the Donbass region, where they've been fighting for the last 8 years. Unfortunately, those attacks will tie down the Ukrainian army in the east and will allow them to get outflanked from the north and from the south, from the Russian border and from the Russian forces in Crimea. And what Steve is seeing are precision strikes on Ukrainian air defenses and command and control facilities. The Ukrainian, the main airport in Kyiv is actually east of the city, a little bit out of town. I was just there a month ago, and that's where a lot of those air defense assets are going to be, because once Russia can seize that airport and that airfield, they can then fly in forces to seize Kyiv itself. We're also seeing forces flowing down, Russian forces from Belarus. And I think it's really important to note, Carly, that, Belarus has essentially become a Russian puppet, as it was under the Soviet Union. The key pieces in Europe for Putin to reestablish the old Soviet Union are Belarus and Ukraine. He has one, and he's now on a quest, a sad and dark mission to seize Ukraine by force and reestablish the old Soviet Union, as Putin has said for years now.
Congressman, you are a war fighter yourself. What we've seen thus far has been predominantly airstrikes. But if and when the Russian military makes its invasion more inward to, let's say, a Kyiv, you have a resolute people there in the Ukrainians vowing to defend their homeland. What does that fighting ultimately look like?
Well, we met when I was there with a congressional delegation a month ago with the head of Ukrainian special operations. That's what Ukrainian special operations are focused on now: partisan warfare, mobilizing and supporting a National Guard and a civilian population to resist. The key policy question now for President Biden, and what I hope to hear from him today, is that the United States and NATO will continue to support a Ukrainian resistance. That means providing the types of weaponry, secure communication, sniper systems, and other types of equipment that they'll need for ongoing resistance. I think only if Putin believes this will turn into a quagmire, his next Chechnya, his next Afghanistan, and this will be bad for him domestically when Russian body bags start showing back up into Russian villages, will Putin then be deterred and perhaps slow this down or even halt with a more limited incursion or limited invasion.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. And, Congressman, your colleague, Mike Gallagher, he was on our air yesterday, and he said we should be talking to our NATO allies about the deployment of intermediate-range ballistic missile systems, that would get Putin's attention, and that will actually scare him in a way economic sanctions won't. Ukraine is outmanned, outgunned. Is there time enough to change that?
Well, these are all things that President Biden should have been doing months ago. Carly, this was preventable, in my view. Putin could have been deterred. Sanctions should have been in place months ago. They should have been directed at Putin himself and his oligarchs. They should be seizing every yacht, every villa, every international sports team that
Unfortunately, it looks like something has happened to the congressman's mic.
Should have been provided some time ago.
Yeah, without a doubt. Congressman, we had a little issue with your audio, but Todd, do you have another question you want to ask him?
Before we let you go, the president is insisting that no U.S. troops will enter the fray. But what if a rogue missile ends up hitting a NATO nation? What happens then?
Well, that's what's so concerning is reports of the major Ukrainian city on Poland's border, a NATO ally, also receiving targeted strikes in Lviv. That's incredibly concerning, and that's why we have to have our forces on the highest alert, not just in Poland, Romania, and Hungary, but also in the Baltics, Lithuania, Estonia, and Latvia. Those are the final pieces for Putin to put the old Soviet Union back together again. Those countries are NATO allies, and we are treaty obligated to defend them. And that's why this is so dangerous, so escalatory, and should have been met with tougher sanctions and tougher and more lethal aid months ago. But now that we're in this position, again, we need to have Putin believe that this will be a quagmire for him, the likes of which the Russians haven't seen since Chechnya and Afghanistan. I think only then, when we affect his military calculus, not just economic, can we make him think twice.
Well, Congressman, the president is going to be speaking in just hours from now. What can he say to meet this moment?
Well, this is a historic moment, and it's a dark moment. And the commander-in-chief's success here and his strength is what the world needs to see. His strategy of holding back and hoping that that Putin behaves properly hasn't worked. It's failed. And I hope and expect to see him change course as he did on Nord Stream just a few days ago. And we need to see, number one, sanctions on Putin's inner circle and him personally. And number two, a commitment to support a Ukrainian resistance to turn this into a quagmire for Russia. That's what I hope to see today from President Biden.